Okay, it's filming. We are live. Now, I'm using my phone to record this, and I've actually smashed my phone beyond belief. So the forward-facing camera is actually not working, so I can't see myself when I'm filming. I've had to set the camera up so it's facing me. I guess it's a little bit more like a conventional camera, and I can't see what it looks like. So hopefully this works and is well, or good enough to upload. Hi everyone, this is Future Pilot, and today I want to talk about the most fundamental question for aspiring pilots at the moment. What is that question? It's a question that I'm also considering, which is, should you even continue with your training in light of COVID-19? Obviously, the aviation industry has been massively impacted, and at the moment, there's little by way of light at the end of the tunnel. Especially here in the UK, the government's proposing putting in, well, let's say quarantine, 14-day quarantine for people who are coming into the UK. That basically makes it pointless to travel to the UK. So it seems that air travel is definitely going to suffer for a little bit longer, although lockdown measures have been somewhat eased. Now they're being phased with regards to their easing, so there's a lot yet to be seen about what shape the aviation industry is going to be in. So there's lots of pilots who've lost their jobs. There are lots of people who are ready to go, who have the skills, who have the experience, and of course, once air travel starts booming again, which many expect that it will, just because air travel is an essential part of 21st century life. It's just like mobile phones. You know, if we had an issue that swept all mobile phones off the grid, once that gets fixed, it's very likely that mobile phones will be taken up again. It's the same with air transport. So there's little by way of doubt that actually air transport will boom again. The only question is when. And of course, having lots of pilots, skilled pilots who are out of work, they will obviously be the first to be hired. Well, at least logic dictates as much. So, as a trainee pilot, should you continue with your training? Now, I checked out a recent upload by Mentor Pilot, and he basically said, go on, because actually, if you're in your training in about 2 years' time, there's potential for air travel to normalize again, which means that there will be a demand for pilots at that time, which is, I think, an optimistic way of looking at it. But I want to share with you my take on it and how I've answered that question. But before I do, I want to tell you what I've been doing more recently. I've been really just digging into this, pretty much just munching this, just freaking getting into it. So this is volume 6 of the Air Pilot's Manual, and it's about human performance and limitations and operational procedures. And so I jumped at the opportunity to get these Air Pilot manuals, just because, even though I've only got an hour logged so far, just because I'm anticipating that I will need to know this information ahead of time. I applied for a scholarship by the Honourable Company of Air Pilots, and I should be finding out soon whether I got the scholarship, and if I did, I definitely want to be in a position that shows my commitment towards becoming a pilot. And so I thought, you know what, whilst we're in lockdown, why don't get a hold of these, start going through them, because I'm not at work per se, even though I'm doing little bits of work from home. So that's given me some time to dig into these, and I started off with this and the communication volume, but I decided to focus on finishing this, and part of the reason why is because I feel that the information from this one's quite fundamental, actually, because it talks about things like sleep and sleep patterns and how that affects your productivity, and it talks about your cardiovascular system, and it talks about your balancing systems that's in your ears. It talks about whether you're fit to fly, stress management, fatigue. It talks about information processing, and I just feel like actually this, although I've got some fundamental knowledge in my physiology and my psychology, I thought it was a good way to start the journey, because I guess this for me underpins everything else. You know, understanding my physiology and my psychology on a deeper level, and especially in a way that is required for a pilot, is essential to how I even go through the other volumes. So as you can imagine, at the moment I am conscious of my sleeping patterns and my productivity in the daytime. I'm conscious of the way I basically function, so that's quite useful. So anyways, enough of that. The question I just dropped the book on a MacBook, and it was kind of going a little bit crazy, so I had to take that off the keyboard. Probably not best not to slam it down that way, but as you can see, it's pretty well used. I mean, I only bought this in the last month or so, and as you can see, it's been quite well used, so I'm quite happy about that. Now, that's probably giving you some indication as to what my answer is, but I'll still spell it out the way I've answered the question: should you continue with your training? Now, briefly, well, I hope it'll be brief. My background is that the first ever career I got into straight off the bat after school, as I went to college. So in the UK, you finish secondary school at age 16, and you go into college for 2 years, and then you can progress to university at 18. So when I was 16, I went to college, but at the same time, I'd actually taken up dance, and I started teaching dance. So that kind of shaped the early part of my career. I was working as a dance teacher, as a dancer, and I continued to develop myself in that direction. Now, fast forward from the age of 16, let's say, up until the age of 21. That was my focus. My focus and how I made money and how I earned money was through dance and teaching dance and performing as a dancer, etc. And then I moved on to working with children. I also became a coach for children who were looked after children, so children in foster care, who had challenging behaviors and complex emotional and social needs. So I started coaching them, and that took me down a route that went through social services and into schools, etc., etc. So that's the trajectory that my career has taken. But in the back of my head this whole time, from probably since I was as young as I can remember, I always wanted to be a pilot. I always wanted to be a pilot. I've always been fascinated by airplanes, and my last job interview, which I was successful at, was actually near an airport, and that's one of the reasons why I took the job, as well as the fact that I really liked the place and I really liked what I would be doing at the place. But for me, an added extra was that every day I would come in and see airplanes landing, taking off, and so on. And that for me was a great big plus. So I've always been fascinated by aeroplanes. Now, the reason why I then also, if you've watched my update from March, the reason why I also decided to start living out my car, which at the moment I'm not doing, I'm staying with a friend because of lockdown and gyms being locked down, and that's my primary kind of place of, let's say, freshening up and maintaining good hygiene levels. So that's been the case since March. I've literally been living out my car rather, and the reason why I made that decision is because I got really frustrated that I had my first trial flight in 2014, and since then, I mean, there was no progress. Since then, zero progress, and I got really frustrated, other than research, and I got really frustrated, and I said, you know what, I have this burning desire, and if I'm serious about it, I need to make it happen. So for me, I'm at a point now where I feel that actually there is no other option other than to continue and be a pilot. It's one of those, I think in life you have to find something that you're willing to do no matter what. You have to find something, a game that you're willing to play, win or lose. And for me, becoming a pilot is the game I've chosen. All right, he's exercising and having fun. So for me, that's a game that I've decided I want to play, win or lose. Whether I become a career pilot or not, I want to get into a plane. I want to fly that baby. So for me, there's no other option. There's no consideration to whether it's a smart thing to do at the moment in the current climate or not. For me, I can't afford not to do it, especially because I've taken a roundabout route. I've always thought, you know what, focus on getting into a different career, and maybe one day I'll have lots and lots of money, pursuing a different career, and then I'll use that money to become a pilot. And where I realized that got me to was nowhere after a long time. So I decided, I want to take the most direct route towards being a pilot, and where that meant financially, I had to cut costs significantly. And so for me, the one thing I was willing to part with was indeed conventional accommodation. The people who talked me out, or tried to talk me out of it, but they did not succeed. And the reason why is because when you get to a place in your life, and this could be in any sphere of your life, where you actually decide, enough's enough, and you decide that it's a must to have progress. It's not just a should. I love the way Tony Robbins puts it. He says, we've got lots of should. I should do this, and I should do that, and I should study to become a pilot, and I should save some money and do some training. But shoulds don't get you anywhere. When something becomes a must, that's when we act on it. So for me, it became a must, and it's still a must. So there's no question. There's absolutely not a question. And I think if you're questioning whether you should become a pilot, well, fair enough. I'm not going to judge or cast aspersions at someone who does that. But for me, it's not an option anymore. It's not a question anymore, and it's something that I've just got to push forward, because when I get to the end of my life and I look back, what are the things that will burn a hole in my heart? What are the regrets that will weigh on my mind? And for me, because it's been such a dream that's been preserved over time, a dream that's continued to burn despite the different interests and the developing interests, and despite the trajectory that my life's taken. It's been a consistent, persistent passion and desire. I decided I want to act on it, and I know that if I don't, it will come back to haunt me on my deathbed. So for me, it's pretty simple, and that's what I'm going to do. So I hope you're going to be part of my journey as I work towards that. I don't expect that it's going to be easy, and it hasn't been easy so far, but I'm making progress. And I love the quote by Martin Luther King. I probably will butcher it, but I'll try to do it justice. It goes something like this: if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, keep moving forward. And for me, that's the most essential thing, because I believe progress is as simple as being marginally better today than you were yesterday. It's as simple as being marginally forward today compared to where you were yesterday. So if I read one more page of this today, I'm happier. Now, obviously, if I'm going to actually become a pilot, I'm going to have to increase my rate, the rate at which I do that, so that I can actually get there in my lifetime. But the point I'm making is, you got to start somewhere, and you have to keep going. And as long as I'm strong, as long as I'm mentally fit, as long as I'm capable of making that decision, I have committed to making this happen. So I would love to hear what you are up to, and for those student pilots out there, maybe the factors that I'm not considering as to whether it's still the right thing to pursue becoming a pilot at this time and during this climate. So please do comment. I want to know different perspectives. I love hearing different perspectives. It just helps to broaden my horizons, my mental horizons, so that I can actually, hopefully, maybe one day avoid doing something stupid that is counterproductive for me. So please do share your perspective on it. Now, if you would like to, please do subscribe and turn on the notifications and stay up to date with what I'll be posting. I'll definitely have some ideas for some videos, so I hope that you will stick around. Now, until next time, this is Future Pilot wishing you well. Be safe. Future Pilot over and out.